Husker fan Sam McKewon along with Evan Bland here at Nebraska football practice. Kind of a special one for us today. We wanted to kind of recap what we saw in the team period from the Huskers. We watched about 10-15 minutes of that. Evan, it was interesting to watch. There's a couple things that jumped out. We'll get to the quarterbacks in a second, but I was pretty impressed with Nebraska's young receivers and some of the plays they were able to make.
Yeah, I agree. Ja'Cory Barney, we were on the sidelines for maybe a minute or two, and he's streaking down the sidelines. I think caught close to a 35 or 40-yard pass in the air over his shoulder, really impressive. And then Isaiah Nayor, I think it was a touchdown.
It was.
Just had a pass dropped into him as well. And he looks the part. I mean, you see these guys up close. He's 6'2", he's 6'3", he's 210 pounds, whatever it is. Looks the part, and then we hear it again afterwards. I mean, Isaac Gifford and Evan Cooper are saying, there's speed on that side of the ball. With the skill players that they have, Nebraska flashed it, and they've got some hands too.
Yeah, Barney is really quick. That's the kid from Miami that they got, the 4-star receiver. He gets in and out of his breaks really, really well. Jalen Lloyd looked really good as well. He's put on a little weight, which I think was probably good for him, and he bulked up, and he still looks good, though. Davon Hall, I thought, had a couple moments today. They got on him a little bit for a drill, but he looks good. I mean, he looks Nayor certainly had a moment. Jamal Banks had a couple of moments. Jaden Doss had a couple moments. This is an impressive young group of receivers. Demetrius Bell's banged up right now, but I know they like them, like him. And so this is a group that needs to get better, folks, because last year Nebraska too often, whoever the quarterback was, just didn't have anybody to throw to. Teams could go into zero coverage or cover one. They go to man-to-man, and they would lock these guys up. They've got to find a way to get guys open. And I thought Nayor's play today was probably the best one, but the throw was really good too. And the two best throws during that team period came from Danny Galen.
Yeah, that's right. Danny Dimes. I mean, he keeps making throws like that. He's going to earn that nickname. He looked really good. I mean, he looked comfortable in the system. It's easy to forget he's an early enrollee. I mean, he should still be in high school if he had the traditional cycle going. So maybe I think it adds a little bit of intrigue to the quarterback conversation, where there was a lot of assumption that Dylan Raiola would be the guy. Well, you know what? Daniel Kaelin was an Elite 11 quarterback in his own right. He's showing it out there on the field. He worked with high-end receivers at Bellevue West. He looked awfully comfortable out there. I think that conversation is just getting started.
I agree with you. You know, I think the thing that I like about Kaelin is his footwork's pretty good, and he stays on balance, and he's pretty accurate within a certain range. He's not going to have a 70-yard arm the way that Dylan Raiola does, but I thought he did some really nice things today and seemed to operate the offense effectively. Now Raiola. Now, he had a couple of completions. He had one that guys were covered, and then he had one that was a near interception that he probably shouldn't have thrown. But here's what I see. Incredible arm talent, for sure. He can throw as what they call off-platform throws, probably as well as any freshman I've ever seen. So he had a couple of those today. One of them he probably shouldn't have thrown. One of them turned into a completion to Jalen Lloyd, where he's a little bit off-platform because he didn't get as good a protection from his line, but he's still able to find and track that kid and then throw it to Lloyd on that little slant pattern. But just, a continued work in progress there. The arm talent is incredible. He didn't get as much help from his line today, but at the same time, there's probably some work to do, as there is for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, I think it backs up what we heard from Matt Rule and a lot of the players, which has been everybody's doing well. Yeah. They're coming along at maybe a speed that is quicker than what the coaches expected. And so, the conversation at the beginning of the spring is, okay, what's Nebraska going to do in late April when the transfer portal opens? I think just based on the limited things we've seen, what we've heard, what people are saying, I think they're pretty happy with where these guys are right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Nebraska defensive backs are interesting. We talked to Evan Cooper today. He's an interesting guy to talk to because sometimes he'll say really revealing things, and other times you can tell he's trying to hold a little back. I found it notable that he said that Malcolm Hartzog is mostly working at safety. Now, Hartzog's 5'9" and about 185. Now, a safety can play that at that height. Certainly, Bob Sanders did it for years and years at Iowa and then for the Colts. And there's nothing wrong with playing a guy back there if he really knows the defense. Remember DiCaprio Boodle, who's not a tall guy, was playing back there at safety. I think it bodes well, though, for Nebraska's corners if they feel comfortable putting Hartzog at safety for an entire spring, because it means they got the guys that they want to corner. And as you look at some of those guys, the physical traits that a Bly Hill has, or a Sincere Seifula who had a nice coverage play, just a couple of other, like they're able to retain some of these guys, and it's interesting to watch because I don't know which of those guys is going to end up being the best ones, but they're all still here. And if they can kind of retain them under NIL, I think you've got some pretty impressive athletes back there. I don't know which ones are going to play, but I think, Taman Lynham transferred, and I think to some degree Taman Lynham, who was, I think, a 4th or 5th year guy, transferred in part because some of these young guys were going to play ahead of him.
Yeah, I agree. And Tommy Hill, is another kind of exhibit A, someone that Matt Rule called out a little bit before spring, and by all accounts has really come into his own as a leader.
Right.
You hear from guys like Isaac Gifford, who is celebrating his 23rd birthday, kind of joked that he was feeling it a little bit, but and this kind of came out in the documentary that Nebraska put out, but he said, a lot of these young guys are coming to him. And I think you're starting to see that culture in that room specifically now, where you do have an older guy, and Isaac Gifford termed it as he's learned the process, he's lived the process, now he's defending the process, and he's teaching it to those younger guys too. And I think that's a sign that you've got something sustainable going on right there.
A word on Hill. I think Nebraska's defense prior to Tony White taking over had some complexity to it, especially in the coverage units, and so I think Tommy Hill struggled a little bit in the first part of 2022 when Chenander was the DC, and then Hartzog, who I think probably learned the defense a little bit better, was able to take over for Hill. But I think Hill, long run, is an NFL cover corner. He showed that to some degree last year when they're running a little bit more man, they're a little bit more aggressive. He doesn't have to cover as long. He's not having to do as many combination coverages. I thought Hill really flourished in that. He had 4 interceptions last year, and I thought played really, really well. You don't always learn these things as you're kind of covering the team, but Nebraska's defense under Chenander, which was very effective at times, was also complex. Like, it suited a DiCaprio Boodle, 5th-year DiCaprio Boodle. It maybe was harder for a transfer like Tommy Hill, so I think he's doing well. The question is that other corner. Now, so if Hartzog's playing safety, then that means Bly Hill is probably over there. That probably means Mario Buford. And, I noticed that Cooper talked about Mario Buford, likes him. And I think Buford is a candidate to play right away.
Yeah, you talk about true freshmen where they can have impacts. That's one of those spots. You see guys like that pop every year. He was a highly touted recruit. We've heard a lot about him. Early enrollees always have the inside track on potential playing time in the fall. So, just another example. How many other guys have we talked about in the secondary before we even mentioned his name? I think that's a testament to the depth that they're building there. And when there's going to be that turnover in terms of guys moving on after this season, I think the room's set up pretty well into the future too.
Agreed. Picture looked pretty good today from a lot of different quarters. We will be back on Thursday to talk more. Matt Rule will talk on Thursday. Tom Chattel will be here too on Thursday. We'll have our Pick 6 on Wednesday. All right, for Evan, I'm Sam with Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. Thanks, Husker fans.